Hi, good morning. It's me. So we are on First Corinthians chapter 7. I'm getting into chapter 7 early. I was going to hold off and wait for 5 more days, but I did get a couple feedback saying that was just a little too long. There was some people that were anxious to get more sooner than waiting a week for the next video, so I'm putting it up now. Obviously, this is going to be a longer video. We're on First Corinthians chapter 7, and verses 1 through 9 is in regards to the unmarried. Verses 10 through 17 is regarding the married, and verses 18 through 24 is circumcision. I get tongue twisted on words, and servitude. And verses 25 through 40 is regarding to virgins. So I guess I'm giving you a little sneak peek. I know that there were some people that were saying that Paul was against marriage. Paul was not against marriage. He was not ever against marriage. The thing with Paul was he was saying, and you're gonna learn about that in this chapter, is that if you couldn't commit to your partner and do your part, your duty as a husband, then it was better for you to not marry. So Paul was not against marriage. But you'll find that out as we go along. Okay, so verse 1, now concerning the things whereof ye wrote unto me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. So Paul is drawing attention to the letters that the people of Corinth had written to him, and this is one of those times in the King James version that really lets us down as far as the translation goes, the way that it is translated. So the subject here is in the word touch. So we have to take this word back to the manuscripts in the Greek. And in the Strong's Concordance, and you can go check it out, is going to be number 680. And it's haptomai, and it's haptomai. Sorry, you go check it out. I'm sorry, I apologize. I say it wrong. It is spelled Haptomai, and it is reflective of 681, and it is properly to attach oneself to touch in many applied relations. Touch. So we see, to understand the word haptomai, we have to go to the prime word number 681, which is hapto, Hapto. And it is the prime verb proper to fasten, to to specifically to set a fire. See where I'm going with this? To set a fire, to kindle light. So now let's go back to what Paul is telling these Corinthians in his instruction on the matter of touching a woman. So Paul is saying in very common terms that a man should not kindle or set afire the sexual desires with a woman. Makes sense, right? Okay, so and the reason obviously Paul is saying this is because things can get out of control, and Paul is telling the menfolk that it is not right for a man to raise his sexual desires between a man and a woman because of what happens, the urge to merge. Verse 2, nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. So, however, Paul is saying that if this burning desire for a woman is there and you simply cannot control it, then to avoid fornication, get married to that one. Get married to that one that you have that sexual desire for. That's what Paul's saying. When your sexual drive overcomes your better judgment, then it is better that you do marry. Verse 3, let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence, and likewise also the wife unto the husband. So this is done to fill each other's sexual needs. And benevolence in all other places of the Bible is in payment for something owed. However, this one, due benevolence in the Greek in this verse, is 21:33, and it is enoia, EUNOIA. And what it is an act of goodwill. and a conjugal duty. And it comes from 2132 in the Greek, and it is you it's so hard to pronounce some of these words, but you can go check it out. And it is to be well-minded, reconciled, and agree. So not forced upon, it's a mutually agreed upon between a husband and a wife. This touching or setting on fire is not involved here because it is done as a conjugal duty to your mate. So the fire of sexual desire that kindled before the marriage took place is not addressed in this verse, but it has now become the duty of each mate once you have committed in the marriage to your loved one. And remember what I just said, and it is mutually agreed upon. Verse 4, the wife hath not power of her own body, but the husband, and likewise also the husband hath not power of his own body, but the wife. So this not only means that each of the partners belong to each other, but it also means that the wife has power of raising or controlling the sexual drive within the husband's body. And of course, the husband also has the power of raising or controlling the sexual drives within his wife. So this is a matter of building each other up emotionally to take part in this act, or to suppress it when the time is not ready. Verse 5, defraud ye not one the other, except it be with consent for a time, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again, that Satan tempt you not for your incontinency. So the word defraud here is better translated as deprive. So it's best not to deprive the husband and wife, or the husband. So it's best not to deprive the husband of the wife, or the wife of the husband, unless it is agreed upon with both parties. And so Paul Paul was back in Jerusalem for a few days, and then he was gone again on another journey. And it wasn't convenient for Paul to marry, and that's why he remained single. Sorry for that long pause. It's just I'm trying to be a little bit cautious, because I think there might be some words that I can't say, and if there's a young person that comes upon this video, so I want to be cautious about what's coming out of my mouth, that I'm not saying too much or unnecessary certain stuff because of this subject matter. So I apologize for that. Please stay with me. So we know that the intimate relationship between the man and the woman, the husband and wife, it is a good and natural and wholesome when it is enjoyed within the bonds of marriage. Verse 6, but I speak this by permission and not of commandment. Did you get that? I'm going to read it again. But I speak this by permission and not of commandment. So Paul is saying that is not necessarily biblical law in what he is relating here, but it is best to follow these instructions so that Satan will not have the opportunity to gain a foothold in your home and life. Verse 7, for I would not all men were even as myself, but every man hath his proper gift of God, one after this manner and another after that. So as I said before, Paul is not against marriage, and he is addressing those that have made a life without traveling and spreading the gospel, because remember, in those days you were gone for months at a time, 6 months or whatever, so you could not do your duty as a husband to your wife. And then verse 8, I say therefore to the unmarried and widows, I is good for them if they abide even as I. So Paul is telling the widows and the unmarried people that if they are working in a church and trying to serve God as Paul was, that it would probably be better for them if they stayed single. They would then be able to keep their focus 100% on serving God. Verse 9, but if they cannot, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn. So, do not let this verse confuse you. If one cannot retain self-restraint from their sexual desires, then it is better that they do marry. And a lot of preachers take this verse and say that it is better to marry than to burn in hell. And that's not what this statement is about. So what Paul is talking about, if you break this down, the subject is that you are not to overexcite yourself or a woman sexually. And if you cannot restrain yourself in your flesh body, then marry the woman so that you will not burn with passion for her or him. Marry her and get back to work in the ministry or whatever your life's duties may be. So there is nothing wrong with the sexual fire that rises within you for your love of that woman. It is a natural thing in life. God created you and put that desire in you for the purpose of binding you to your mate and continuing the next generation of this life. So it is better to marry than to burn up with desire for the relations of the other sex. And if you check out that word burn in Greek, it's 4448 in the Strong's Concordance, which is Peru, and it is to ignite, ignited, glow, inflamed. It's with anger, lust, or grief, to burn fiery. Now you should see, now you should be able to see what Paul meant when he said it is better to marry than to be inflamed with lust of some woman. I'm going to go ahead and stop there because this video is getting long, but we are going to pick up next in verse 10. God loves you. See you next time.